Hi. So last week, my video was about Hersh Goldberg-Polin and the other Israeli hostages that were killed by Hamas. And Hersh Goldberg-Polin got a particular a lot amount of attention in the United States because he was American. His parents spoke at the Democratic National Convention, and he became someone who many Americans knew. And many Americans mourn his murder by Hamas, which is as it should be. We should care about all human lives. And we have, as Americans, a particular right to be concerned about the fate of other Americans. And now we found that an American has been shot and killed in the West Bank by Israeli forces. On Friday, an American activist named Asenar Ezga-Agi was shot while she was protesting at an Israeli settlement in the West Bank. And this has been happening fairly frequently in recent years. There was several weeks earlier, another American, Amado Sisson, was struck by live ammunition in the back of the leg by Israeli forces. Earlier this year, two 17-year-old Palestinian Americans were killed in the West Bank, Taufik Abdel Jabbar from Louisiana and Mohammed Khadour from Florida. In 2020, a 78-year-old Palestinian American, Omar Assad, was dragged from his car by Israeli forces, bound and blindfolded, and then had a heart attack while in Israeli custody after he'd been left under those conditions for like an hour or so by Israeli forces. In 2021, a prominent Palestinian American journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, was killed by an Israeli sniper while she was wearing a press vest covering an Israeli Defense Forces raid in the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. There is, I think, by any honest assessment, a tremendous difference between the way the United States, in public conversation, and indeed the American government, respond when American Jews are killed in Israel versus what happens when Palestinian Americans, or in the case of this young woman, Asanur, a Turkish American, were killed in the West Bank. The U.S. government does not respond in the same way. There's not the same level of public outcry, and there's not the same level of demand by the U.S. government that the people who committed these killings be held responsible. And what disturbs me about this so much, and I think makes this so important beyond the preciousness of the individual lives at stake, is that the Biden administration, and remember, all of these deaths have been happening, these killings by Israelis of Americans have been happening under the Biden administration. The Biden administration is engaged in a fight against Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, essentially about the idea of ethno-nationalism, about the idea of whether America is a country in which all of its citizens are considered equal under the law, that their lives are equally valuable, irrespective of what their race, religion, and ethnicity is. That, of course, is not the principle that governs Israel as a Jewish state, which elevates the rights and the lives of Jews over Palestinians. But what you see in the way that even a Democratic administration responds to the deaths of Americans in Israel is that they essentially adopt the ethno-nationalist prism in which certain lives are more valuable than others that exists in Israel. And they essentially, therefore, end up taking the position that the Trump campaign is arguing about what kind of country America should be, right? This is Donald Trump's vision of America, America in which there are hierarchies between different citizens based on religion, ethnicity, race, etc. And the Democratic Party is ostensibly fighting in a desperate fight to make sure we are not that kind of a country. And yet when it comes to the Americans who are killed in Israel, either by Hamas or by the Israeli Defense Forces, we essentially adopt that very hierarchy. And the American lives matter more if they're Hersh Goldberg-Polin, an American Jew, than they are if they are Shireen Abu Akleh, an American Palestinian, or Omar Assad, an American Palestinian, or indeed Aysener Ezgi-Agi, a Turkish American. And so it seems to me as a fundamental matter of principle in terms of what the Biden administration and what the Harris campaign says they want to stand for. This represents a betrayal of the vision of America that they are fighting for. And on that basis alone, it seems to me, they should be demanding that there is every bit as much justice for the Palestinian and other Americans who were killed by Israel as there are for the American Jews like Hersh Goldberg-Polin who were killed by Hamas.